First person. It'll get difficult to find phosphorus somewhere in the 200 to 400 year range, we think. Depends on how much better we get at mining. But after that, global phosphorus yield will drop, and then global food production will drop. It's kind of an interesting issue. Definitely not a problem for you, and definitely not a problem for your children. We still have plenty of phosphorus-rich rock for our next few generations.
Chicken water, one of them is bone dry, the other has some water in it.
The buckets that have little holes on the
Yeah.
side. So if there's water in it, there's probably a little refill coming in. Can you level those?
Yeah, I
Pile up
did.
some rocks or something so that they're flat?
One of them was like that, so I've made it flat. And then inside the greenhouse, some of the plants are dry, but some of them are wet.
How many were dry, would you say?
5 or 6 out of every 20.
Okay, thanks.
And they weren't like bone dry, they just had like crumbly dirt on
But the
top.
plant's still green?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. The imbalance here, like this one, is we can speed up one part of the rock cycle, but we can't speed up the other part of the rock cycle. We have today in the real human complexity of the environment, like our global average situation, is we're grinding up a bunch of rock to add it to water so we can accelerate plant growth. And then we're pumping that plant growth into cattle and chickens and humans. Then we're taking our waste stream and pumping it out to the ocean. There's only so much life you can fit on the planet, so basically, by accelerating the weathering of rock, we are accelerating the amount reaching water and thus the amount that settles to the bottom of the ocean. We are rushing this stuff that's accessible to us to the other end of the cycle where it's not accessible to us. And by the way, yes, people have talked about how to mine ocean sediment, but logistically it's not practical, it's so spread out and so difficult to reach. Oh, if you want to get a really fancy PhD, you want to work at coastal nutrient capture. Filtering water going out to the ocean to regather nutrients that could be useful on land. That's a very viable solution, and if you get a good PhD and you do some creative thinking, you could be a billionaire with that. Questions about phosphorus? Yes?
Why is phosphorus good for the plants again? Like just like the chemical?
How many of you have had biology? Adeno-diphosphate and adeno-triphosphate, ADP and ATP. All cellular reactions need an energy transfer compound called ADP or ATP, adeno-triphosphate. That's made out of phosphorus. Phosphate, 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 phosphate. Thanks, buddy. Anybody else? Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just sort of check your notes. Wherever I have a green check mark, you should probably have something about the green check marks. You would not have successful notes. And I'll even help you go through it, so here's what I have in my notes. You might not be as good of a student. Conceptually. Are you communicating these? And these should be on Bookface, are they not? Did somebody not put these on the Facebook group for the class? Grant Basin?
Oh.
I think he put them on. Fine, so you should put them on Facebook. Look, autotrophs make the sugar so they can do cellular respiration and get the energy out. Key concept. Since we can't make our own sugar, we need to eat them to get the energy out. That's why we say all modern 99.5% of all global ecosystems rely on sunlight. Because when I eat sugar and I get energy out of it, that energy was captured from sunlight. Question?
But that's not our only source of getting sugar, right? It's not just eating plants necessarily.
That's not the only reason that you eat plants, but all sugars are made by plants. You know, corn syrup, beet sugar, sugarcane.
Those are plants.
Yeah. Are there any others I'm not thinking about? Brown sugar, sugarcane. Yeah. Turbinado. All right, next. The whole deal with this is the distinction between a slow cycle and a rapid one. So I did not tell you this before. People often call this current carbon, modern carbon, fast carbon. While people separately call this slow carbon, ancient carbon, stored carbon. And that probably fits with a concept you have already, that this carbon is trading hands in real time around us. But this carbon has sunk. In other words, it's left the biosphere. It's out of play. It's like when you lose the two of clubs, you're not playing with it anymore. Does that make sense here? I'm available to answer your questions if you have them. Yeah, bro.
The rock cycle is 5 billion years.
You know, there are rocks which go a few billion years, but on average, we say, like the global total average of input and output of rocks is something like 600 million.
Okay. And that's like what you want us to write down?
I don't really care if you know a time for it because that's an average, right? There are rocks which only lived a few days.
Oh, okay, so what's the con?
So the concept is that this is very slow. We're talking as a global average in the order of 500 million years, a long ass time, way longer than my life and yours combined.
The time we have.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that we've taken roughly half of what's readily available and stored in rock and made it into atmospheric already. The stuff that we can reach. Now, a few different check marks here. One, this is all done by bacteria. Two, even when we talk about the nitrogen fixing plant, it's actually not the plant. It's an unfortunate misuse of language to say that the plants themselves are nitrogen fixers. They're not. They have little houses for the bacteria. So cover crop, nitrogen fixing crops, clover that people will usually interplant underneath corn, for example. The plant doesn't make ammonium. It does not. Those plants have the little root nodules, the home for the bacteria that does it. So remember, done by bacteria. The fixer bacteria sometimes live in plants, and the plants got the credit because early farmers didn't have the microscopes. But it's got nothing to do with the plant other than the plant housing bacteria. Yeah?
Is this ammonia or ammonium? Because you see like
Thanks.
a few different.
That was something that I wanted to correct myself on today. I may have told you, I think, a couple of days ago that ammonia and ammonium are interchangeable. And they really aren't. I had a discussion with a bunch of my colleagues who teach this class nationally. There's like discussion threads for teachers like me to ask questions of other peers of mine. And a bunch of the early responses were like, oh yeah, you can't expect kids to know that. And then there was like the really nerdy teachers that are like really good at their job. They're like, well, keep in mind, they're totally separate. Ammonia is a gas or a crystal, and ammonium is the only way that plants can use it because it's dissolved in water and plants drink their nutrients. That's a really critical point, so I agree. Please look up. Don't call it ammonia. It's called ammonium. And the only difference is it's ammonia that's dissolved into water, and that's important because plants drink their ammonium. They drink almost all of their nutrients. That's why we water them. So I'm glad you asked me about that. I hope I've made that clear to all my other classes. The last thing I want to remind you about the nitrogen cycle is there are only 4 nitrogen compounds that you have to know. The first one you have to know is nitrogen gas, which is also known as molecular or diatomic. Nitrogen gas, molecular, diatomic. And remember, that's useless to life. You read it all day and it doesn't do you any good. You can't make use of it. It's not active. It doesn't chemically react with any part of our metabolism, so we can't take advantage of it. It's like trying to eat rocks. Like, yeah, you can get it in your stomach, but you're not going to do anything with it. Number 2, you have to know ammonium, NH4 with a little plus at the top. And ammonium is used by plants. They drink it. It's how plants get their nitrogen. Number 3, in the metabolism of many bacteria, there's this one type of nitrogen compound called nitrate, NO3 with a minus on top, nitrate. Technically, plants do use that a little bit. That's not too relevant for your level of nitrogen cycle. You can just think of it as an intermediary before it becomes gas again, nitrate, NO3. And finally, the 4th compound you have to know is amino acids. That's not a formula. There's a lot of different amino acids. They all have unique formulas. You all know, I believe, that amino acids are the building blocks of protein. Is that correct? Is that something that you all learned in biology? By the way, I'm not going to bust you for this, but who either didn't have biology or totally has no idea what happened in biology? Sounds like you had it, but you have no idea what happened in biology? That's fine. That's fine. Dude, I had biology, then I had AP biology, and when I got to college, I was like, I have no idea what happened in biology. Okay. That's okay, I'm not judging. Too much. Anybody else want to talk to me about 2.3, the study goals about cycles? You can imagine it's kind of testable, so yeah.
What are amino acid roles in the nitrogen cycle?
They are the application of nitrogen in most living things. So, for one thing, your body uses almost all of those for some things. And there's like 6 that your body can't, that all life is based on. They're called the big 6 macronutrients, right? And they don't all just enter your body on their own. You know, if the rock has something useful and I throw the rock at your face, that's not like you can use it now. So there's this fancy chemistry of how our body can absorb things. Our body can't absorb the nitrogen we breathe. It goes in and out, it doesn't help. We need nitrogen, but we can't use it that way.
So the nutrients are just amino acids.
That's right, yeah. And so ammonium, if you drink it, I'm pretty sure it makes you barf or die. Something like that. It's not good for you, don't do it. Windex. Suicide, right? Do not ingest. Okay, thanks, Amina. Wow, always helpful. I love it when you pitch into class. You turn around and face the wall. Okay, then amino acids, our body can break proteins into the individual amino acids, and we rebuild them to make handsome Jose proteins or fugly teenager proteins or whatever. Each of us has our own independent proteins, and so we rearrange the pieces.
So amino acid roles are helping us process nitrogen.
No, amino acids roles are the compound that mostly uses nitrogen in our body. It's nitrogens are used to make amino acids.
Okay. Rather than.
Yeah, you can't build those bonds, you can just rearrange them.
Okay.
So like sand is used to make concrete. Nitrogen is used to make amino acids, but you don't do that inside you. You have to get them made by somebody else and then you reconnect the amino acid.
And then this is like kind of on topic. What's nitrogen and scuba diving? Because I know isn't there like
Yeah.
nitrogen sickness?
So because it's 71% of the atmosphere, it's 71% of a conventional atmospheric scuba tank, right? But under pressure, different gases get smaller or bigger. The problem is that the nitrogen gas in your scuba tank shrinks faster than the oxygen in your scuba tank under pressure, right? So you get to the point where whenever you're breathing deep underwater, the ratio of nitrogen to oxygen tips in favor of nitrogen. You overdose on nitrogen. Underwater, when it's all squeezed together, oxygen doesn't shrink too much, but nitrogen shrinks a lot.
So you're just taking in more.
So when you take a breath of oxygen, which hasn't changed size very much, you've taken like 17 breaths of nitrogen at like 60 feet,
Yeah, sure.
right?
So, and that's why you're limited to only diving so much.
That's right, because your blood super saturates with that nitrogen. Remember I told you, you can't like do anything with it, but you know it dissolves in your blood and then you breathe it out, it doesn't do you any good, but it's in there. So then when you start to rise to the surface, the pressure inside of your blood vessels drops again, right? And so all of that gas is above the diffusion concentration, and it makes little bubbles.
And expand.
Yeah, as you come up, it goes back from being really small to being really big inside of you. And there's so much nitrogen in your blood that it just makes little bubbles trying to rise to the surface. Like when you open a soda, you know how all the carbon pops out? So you get that same soda fizz effect inside your blood vessels with little nitrogen bubbles.
And is that how you get the bends?
Those are the bends.
That is the bend.
It
Oh,
clogs a blood vessel.
okay.
So you know how your blood vessels shrink as they split? So that bubble will course through your blood until it goes and gets stuck. And then all of a sudden you're not getting blood flow. Yeah, so you have like muscle death and whatnot, nervous problems, heart attacks, strokes. Yeah.
To fix that problem with like the scuba tank, would it be a good idea, or like is it possible to separate the oxygen from the nitrogen? Would that be a bad idea?
For extreme diving, you do multi-tank diving. So you have a pure oxygen tank and technically a pure nitrogen tank, because you still need a little bit of that
But
mix.
is it-
So you regulate how much is in which one.
Can I go to the bathroom?
No, just sit there and pee your pants.
Okay.
Use a bucket. Use your water bottle. Why would you ask? Like now we're all gonna be thinking about it. Like everybody, make sure see if she washes her hands and get back. Okay? Yeah.
Other than photosynthesis and respiration, where you said like decomposition in the rock cycle.
What?
Where does the carbon come from, other than photosynthesis and cellular respiration?
And decomposition. And a very small amount does dissolve out of rock. You know, remember that there like it's not like in the absence of humans, we wouldn't run out of carbon. In the absence of humans, there's a little bit of stuff becoming rock, but there's another end to this, which is volcanic eruptions and rocks melting into lava and dissolving carbon into water and erosion, you know, weathering, right? So the two ends of the rock cycle still happen. So one source is the biotic cycling, another one is the decomposition, which is also biotic cycling, and the third one is for every unit sinking, there's probably a unit on this side coming out of rock. When the rock wears away, little bits of carbon dissolve in water, it's called carbonate. Everybody good? I'm available to you. Even though I just want to go fishing. Okay. I would like to break you into groups. U4, U3, U4, and U4, U4, and U4. I will give you 7 minutes to find the evidence of 19, 21, and 22 in your reader, and then I will use popsicle sticks to call on you, so please make sure that you have answered all of 19, 21, and 22. On your marks, get to go.
19's like.
And tell home girl she showed
Anything else you need to do?
You can say for the first one, the dams building, yeah, you can say whose dams building creates wetlands and converts forests to meadows. Makes its environment moister than it would have
I
been.
need these. I was gone on Monday, Tuesday.
I mean, what's got this for you? It's ready. I mean, will you quickly just stand for me?
How long? 3 minutes? Alright.
And then stand on board.
Should I cover it with something so it retains moisture?
It's crap anyway.
Okay. Yeah. I got 19.
I have rehearsal until 6 today.
You up-talk every sentence.
I up-talk.
Like that.
Yeah.
I up-talk.
Yes, right.
And it's like in the theater,
Yeah.
so they lock me out for like 2 minutes.
They will, yeah, but it just depends on how soon they get started. Like if you can tell your rehearsal person in the theater, like,
They provide
you know, I gotta leave at
all
5,
southern
7.5, and they'll write you a note about why, maybe they'll
Southern
feel about it.
Alright.
But it's a really slippery slope if kids getting their way. Technically, I usually tell them like 3 minutes window because of these issues, but
Yeah.
like they're supposed to lock you out when they start the first question. Yeah, I would think that if you just totally hustle and told everybody you can make it, you should try, but they are supposed to lock you out. Because dude, the thing is, like, if we leave it open for 6:05, there's somebody at like 6:07, like, oh, I just had a drive from CETA. And then if we leave it at 6:07, there's somebody at 6:09, like, come on, what's going on? I got a car accident. Like, sooner or later, you got to call it. And so when they call it, they call it.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you. I know you're already gonna say no, but
Oh,
like
good.
starting in the middle, we'll have to watch the next.
Correct. Just a bit. I used to do that, and then kids were like, "Oh, I'll pull one out for me too." And you got too easy to shade about it. Yeah. I ain't tripping, dog.
Yeah, I wrote that too. There's just like, there's so many different parts to the answer in these articles. There's 19. There's like answers. I'm on the side just for
Yeah, that's on those two extra.
yeah, you can find it in your packet, like underline it.
So which ones you want me to do?
Yeah. Wasn't the whale one of them too? Or was that only?
That was 32.
Okay.
Oh, I wrote that. So 3 active clauses. And they get regulation foods.
Should I put it on your desk? Or where do you want your burrito?
Right there. Thanks, homie. No, don't feed her. Feed me.
You said it right there.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes off my burrito, bud. I see you looking at it. Stop it.
Are you good?
The 21 wait, if we got like 6 points that you credit, like, is there a limit, like a percentage? No, 100% like the
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
Cycle.
You can only get one
I really
extra credit up to 1/3. Never know her until after your test. So your class, her is 22. So your credit is 7.3. You can't do more than 7. This is your last minute. I hope you have all of them because then I'm on a popsicle stick. Yo, bro, what is that? Sequester? Technically, it means to kidnap, but in English, we usually use it to mean hiding something or putting it away. Yeah, it was taking money away from other projects. For sequester, that was taking money out of certain parts of the government budget temporarily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Okay. Okay. Colton, take us. Colton, take us. Please tell us how the beaver is so critical to its ecosystem. What does it do that's so important in its environment?
It creates wetlands by building dams and converts forests into meadows.
Yeah, okay. Martin Croshaw the wolf.
The wolf, keeps the elk from overeating in the meadow, which then brings their like supports life for different types of flowers, which then supports life for insects.
Bonus high five opportunity. What do you call that habitat along the river where those things grow? What is it? No.
Waterbed.
Habitat along the river. Ah, high five.
Wait, actually, what?
That was sweet. Say again.
Riparian?
Riparian.
Wait, what's the what is that?
Riparian, like the.
Is Slater LaBelle in another period?
Yeah,
No. Wait,
No, he's in another period.
Yeah, I know. Because everyone was replying
Can I inquire while everybody else is talking? What is all that? Just wondering. Thought it might be interesting. Pierce Barnes. Who's next? Salamander?
Yeah.
What's up with the salamander? This is a tough one to explain, so good luck, Barnes.
They eat insects that are full of proteins and fat, and then throughout their life they deplete and fertilize the rivers or streams that they live in, and then when they die, their decomposition is also really.
Pretty darn close. You're right about the proteins and the fats and about the eating all the bugs. And yeah, their fluid decomposition does cycle a little bit. Yeah?
Is it because they have a huge biomass?
Yeah, so they were a surprisingly big link in carrying protein and fat up the food chain. You know, if you go walking around streams, you're not likely to see a lot of them. And after recalculating their total population size, it appears that it's like a whole layer in the food chain. So in the absence of salamanders, many species of mammals and birds starve to death. Remember I told you what would happen if you took out the primary consumers in the food webbing assignment? This is a perfect example of how when you lose a critical layer, everything else still starves. Salamander. Is the hammerhead next?
Horseshoe crab.
Horseshoe crab. Oh, I got a lot to tell you about this one. Adriana. So, horseshoe crab.
So they are used for bait, or they've been used for bait, and so that's why the crab eggs aren't as available, but they're important because the shorebirds eat them on the,
Remember the name of that shorebird?
not.
Okay. So the movie that you may have seen last night or you might see tonight is about this issue. Anybody see it last night? Okay. Neat, right? With the blood thing? Maybe you can remind me because I don't think I got the story right. The red dot is a migratory bird. They're critical in the Arctic Circle at the extreme north of the Americas. And so without them getting a big resupply of calories from horseshoe crab eggs, they might not make the trip to the north. And when they don't make the trip to the north, they're important for like cycling seeds, which helps maintain grass species, which are critical to caribou or reindeer or something. So our fishing habit affects the Arctic natives' access to wild game. Which is why there's international legislation about how you impact migratory birds. It's a way of messing somebody's environment from outside their environment. But the fun fact about horseshoe crabs, what color is their blood?
Blue.
Because does anybody know which compound they use to bind with oxygen instead of iron in our blood and hemoglobin, which makes it red? They use what?
Copper.
Copper. You guys know that copper oxide looks blue? When you get a rusty penny, it's that bluish green color. And so, because the blood of horseshoe crabs has copper in the presence of oxygen, it turns like a really vibrant robin's egg blue. you know, when your blood gets oxygen, it turns what color? Red, because iron oxide is red like rust. Hemoglobin has iron. Hemoglobin has oxygen, iron oxide is rust colored. But theirs turns blue. And why do we care about that? You remember? Yeah?
Because it clots around bacteria, so it's good for like antibiotics.
Yeah, especially because bacteria that are anaerobic will often breathe out oxygen. And so they make little blue dots. So if you have bacterial contamination in your shots, you get these little blue dots in the shot. Newsflash, if you've ever received a shot, any vaccine, immunization, booster, tetanus, extreme vitamins, whatever, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the doctor will mix it up and always look in the light before they fill the syringe and hit you with it. They're looking for little blue dots. If you've ever had a shot, you have horseshoe blood in your veins. Tight. Actually, you don't have it anymore. Your body gets rid of it pretty fast. But isn't that neato? Am I the only person that thinks that's neato? That we use the blood of a crab. They milk the crabs. They put them on a conveyor belt, hold them down with bungee cords, and then they like punch needles into them and drain their blood into like huge bottles. And then they take them on the boat and put them back in the swamp and go, thanks, little buddy. We'll see you next week. And so they are forced blood donors for our medical industry. Isn't that a trip? I'm the only guy that's tripped out by this. Like, some dude's job is to walk around in swamps and like kick until he hits one, and he goes, grabs it, throws it in the boat, and like that's his job. He like drives him over to the pharmaceutical place and goes, good luck, guys. And there's all these people with like lab coats and like hairnets. And they all have like sterile environments, and they all milk crab blood. They got to be really careful with them, so they have to like chill them so they don't freak out. And they have to like sterilize them, so they have like little bleach brushes, and they go like, and they like scrub the spot before they put it in the needle so it's all sterile. Isn't that trippy? You're all boring. What's after the hammerhead chart? Is the next one? Aaron Geezer? Hammerhead charts. Why are they so critically important in their food web?
Because they're an apex predator and control all the O-class predators, like fish, oysters, and crabs.
Yep. And here's an interesting thing. For one thing, they regulate diversity, predator effect. I think that's what you were getting at. Separately, there's another issue with predators called a trophic cascade. You know, producers, consumers, top consumers, right? In the case of the hammerheads, they are the only predator of the consumers that they eat. So when you don't have hammerheads, there's nothing to limit the growth of these, and they expand until the point where they undermine all of the producers. And so it causes this like impact where like not enough of these makes too many of these, so there's not enough food, so then all of these go extinct. Trophic cascade, where the impact water falls down the food chain. Yeah?
Is that related to the predator effect?
It kind of is, but it's not a matter of diversity, which is the specific issue. You feel me, Doug? Okie dokie. Let's look over your Unit 1 exam. We don't have a ton of time, so I have a lot to tell you. You'll want a piece of paper where you're going to start recording all of your exam scores. You could title that paper APES Unit Exams or something. You'll keep it. It's not for me, it's for you. But you really want to use that paper, trust me. So these are all new procedures. You'll be doing this every time I give you back an exam. I always post the multiple choice exam with the answer circled. I always post the free response question and the free response key, which is how we grade your test, and I always post the curve. You may never photograph any of it. You may not copy down questions. And if I could prove you memorized them, you wouldn't be allowed to do that either. Because they cannot leave this room. The purpose of this is not for you to take away the questions, but it is for you to see what you did wrong in your answers. Your paper is to keep track of your scores, so once I give you your test, you'll know what your grade was, because I mess them up all the time. Remember that I enter grades behind the whiskey curtain. And late at night, when I'm also watching Netflix on the third screen, I'm not really all that good at entering grades. I'm good at fixing it. So I don't really have to try that hard. I figured the kids will find my mistakes. It's in your best interest. So instead of a 31, I give you a 13 or something. I want to record that. Shockingly, I more often make mistakes in my favor than in yours. I don't know why. You always keep track of your scores, so you can keep me honest. Because you're not going to leave with my papers, you're going to get back all the exam papers. I'm also going to give you back your homework packet. You keep all papers all year, including all your homework packets. I think by now you all know that? Hopefully? Okay. Here's how we grade your stuff. Your answers have to first of all meet the fundamental format issues to be graded at all. So they have to be in full sentences, you have to show your work, you have to include units, or it doesn't matter what else you do. Then, I have a rubric that will give you a point for specific accomplishments in your answer. So you might remember, identify the 5-year period during which the greatest decline took place. For that period, calculate blah, 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 then show clearly how you blah, blah, blah. And so, you get 1 point for identifying 1965 to 1970. If you said 1965 to 1970, we'll give you a check mark. And if you didn't, you lost the point. Then you get 1 point for calculating the rate of decline, which is 100,000 metric tons per year, or 500,000 metric tons per 5 years. And if you said either of those, we give you a point. And if not, we don't give you anything. And then you get 1 point for showing your calculations. And if you don't show your calculations, there's no in-between points, there's no half points, there's no partial points, there's no what you meant or what you thought you were saying. We just give you a point if you accomplish what the question asked according to the rubric. I have to warn you that a lot of my students aren't wrong, they're just not right enough. That's a key struggle in the advanced placement sciences. Questions, someone? Yeah.
If you got the actual answer wrong for a calculation, but you showed your work that you did some sort of math, do you still get the point for the
It
calculation?
depends. If you did any old math, like pi r squared, we'd be like, well, that's nice, but that's not the right setup. But if you got the wrong 5-year period and used the right method of calculating rate of change, which is A minus B over C, one value minus another value is the difference in values over a unit of measurement like time, then that would be a calculation of a rate. So if you did the wrong numbers in the right way, then you could still get a calculation point. A lot of kids just show calculation, but if it's not a relevant calculation, then it's not. When you get to Scantron, newsflash, Scantron machines make mistakes all the time. SAT never tells you that, the College Board never tells you that. So statistically, 2 of you will get ripped off by our Scantron machine, and you cannot appeal the Scantron. I don't care if you wrote the right answer. Most of the time, people just don't tell you, but it happens all the time in your testing. Unfortunately, in this case, you'll see it, but I don't let you appeal. However, you can appeal the free response because sometimes my TAs get it wrong. So when you finish looking at your stuff, I'll show you how to appeal. Look carefully when you check the key. I will ask you to circle the part of your answer that does meet the key. Got it? Wait, I totally said that. She didn't give me credit. This is where I said it. So you'll have to circle the part of your answer that you feel deserves credit when you're making an appeal. Usually about 40% of appeals are granted. Ish. Math classes appeal the most. Your class had a high curve. Your high score was a 23, and there was at least 2. I think it might have been more than 2 actually. But when we throw out the 2 highest scores that I could find when I made the curve, it's a 22. Your curve is set at 22. So please look up. You'll take your total and multiple choice, which is a little pink number right there. You'll add that to the free response question total, which is a numbered red at the top. And the sum of those 2 is your total. If you want to know a percentage, you can divide it by 22, which is your curve. That'll give you the percentage. Are there any questions? Once I hand these back, don't ask me any questions for 5 minutes. Just see what you can see. And then when you go back to your seats, I'll address the whole class again. Yeah?
What was it originally?
There were 25 points possible. The highest across all my periods was a 24. 1 student. There was like 5 or 6 23s across all periods. Yeah?
With the extra credit points from the opportunities you gave us, how are those like?
Those are just straight up test points.
Okay.
So if you did 6, you can just throw a 6 on top.
Have you already put those into the?
No, they'll be in the computer soon, but they're not there. Any other questions? I need 6 volunteers to pass out papers, please. Come on, come on. Let's go. Any more volunteers? Still need more. I need more volunteers. Nope, I don't. Yeah, no, I need you though. Thank you. Take the stamp to a mean and then we'll test it.
Good.
So you're gonna write.
What'd you get with?
And you won't change it.
This is out of 10, right?
Can you see here?
Yeah, it is.
Mars, what are you?
In front of Alex.
All right, what was your question?
Okay. So if we I'm Just because it, that's how it's running.
You can even take one of the food webs, bring it back with you.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then also for the exercise that I did for this test, there's a place where I did not transfer over to Unit 2, because I went on the Roy Honda.
Oh, you're so.
These are the number titles of your crew and understand.
Oh, I'm so mad.
Start.
And the number 2 silver slot.
Oh, sort of one better.
I got one moment for this
Yes, sir.
How much?
I might have just been one. It's up there, it's right there, inside the.
I didn't get my.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
It's only got 2 long. Oh my god, I'm so mad.
It's how
Tomorrow's test, was there anything math?
I think the chickens, like, I see them kind of like fight, like one of these was kicking on the guy. And I think they might knock over the waters, and that's why they get so loyal. Because like, if you move it a little bit, no.
Wait, so it's.
Think so. Unit 2. Tournament.
Would be
So it's not like there's a loop,
I
it's
don't know.
like
There's like 2 hours on my computer.
Could you make like a trash can like that? A trash can on a big.
You're saying that if you do the math right, we get it wrong.
Damn it.
I don't know.
This is the right math, not right. So feel like you. Oh, okay.
I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, I put one higher than that.
To this.
However,
Wait, it's 1.2. Wait. So without the credit, I
What does it say?
I'll go back to this.
Wait, can you do it?
These, I could, either there's no name, or I couldn't find the name,
Wait, Lily, do you know what?
or they're like the weirdest.
Airlea's right here. Change shields, credit keys.
It's 1.2.
She dropped out, so. Airlea's in grade 2.
Okay.
Aaliyah, you gotta put your name and period on the paper, bro. I know we don't give you credit, but good thing I was here right now. And she's burger strength. Burger store.
How do you roll?
I'll get that.
Did you guys?
That's
paperwork.
That's 4%. Talk about it.
I've gone so many times by the Samsung. What did you get overall?
120.
120, but it was right.
Oh, wait, which one?
We'll get into that.
So I,
Yeah, I just didn't know how to calculate. I'm good. I accept it. Okay.
Bye. I know, so sorry. I didn't get the
What's our-
You were around the.
No, you wouldn't. They can find it. All right, students, please take a seat now.
That's me. You got
I got a 30 on that.
Yes, like a sweet too.
But I needed to feel this thing.
For what?
This is my pen, okay. So this one, this 2-point thing right here, they said I have a pen ready to decline. It's right here.
Alright then, look, there you go.
I know, but I don't know how to like address it. It scares me.
Why is he scared?
Because he's just I don't know like what I'm doing wrong. So like I don't want to go up there because I know we're not supposed to go up there. But
How do we apply?
I'll figure it out later.
Now me. Second request. Okay. The reason I didn't answer your questions is a lot of you are going to have the same questions. And even if you don't have this question, I want everybody to hear this material because sooner or later you're going to run into the same problems on the exam days. And I hate answering the same questions over and over again. So, when you look at the key, you check your own answer, and they'll put a check mark when you did what it says. Or they will not put a check mark if you didn't do well enough what it says. Warning that many of you aren't wrong, you're just not right enough. But when you're looking at the key and then you look at your answer and you're like, wait, right there, totally, exactly, spot on, clearly, no doubt. And there's no check mark credited to that section of your answer. Then you circle the section of your answer. At the top of your paper, by your name, you write the word appeal. And then very, very briefly, say where and why. Like appeal, B, I gave solution. And then you circle the solution in your answer. Sometimes my TAs count your check marks wrong. So you can see appeal, please recount, and then circle all the check marks that you see. Are there any questions? John?
What was the like max for number or letter A.
She says, what's the max? Just so you know, when you look up there, the key will always say on the left of the answer in bold, which is the response we're looking for, how many there are. So in A, you can see 1 point, 1 point, 1 point for a total of 3. In B, it says 1 point, 1 point, 1 point for a total of 3. And then in C, it says 1 point each for 4, so a total of 4. 3, 3, and 4. That's your question. Anybody else? Make sure that you record your score, and you might want to keep track of where you have weaknesses. Because the content is cumulative, you'll see all this again. So if you sucked at the math, make sure that you remember this for next time. Or if you sucked at the rule of 70 or the justifications, it's all fair game for the future. It's a cumulative class. Once you've recorded your mistakes, you may not copy the exact questions. I'll ask you to hand in your appeals. Who has an appeal? Feinberg will come by and collect them. So make sure you give that to Feinberg. Everybody else, pass up all of your exam papers now. Pass up all your exam papers now. All single pile, all the exam papers now. Single pile, all the papers. What? What? That has to be a typo. Impossible. No. That's evidence of cheating.
Nobody's socially and
I know that. Obviously. Has to be.
And use entrance.
All your papers up, please. One pile, all your papers. Thank you. You might just want to keep track of your
No, just have to give an appeal.
Might you erase?
Good.
Just a perfect copy.
I don't know. That looks pretty good to me.
What was
I'm really good.
Behind the smudge on the one underneath. You see that extra smudginess?
There you go.
That's my guess. Regarding the Scantrons, I don't really want to give it away, but it makes it very easy to cheat if people can appeal the Scantrons.
But what if like you just see it and it says E and there's an E right next to it?
What you could have done is leave it blank and then add the E after the fact. And I'm not accusing you of this, but if I appeal, it's too difficult to prevent cheating by others. I actually went to the trouble of catching someone do this years ago. And I told the principal, like, yo, we gotta bust him. And he's like, well, it's kind of tough to prove it. I go, look, I can prove it. And I think him and her and she and him did this too. And he's like, well, if we can't prove it, you should just change your policy. So I've always stuck to my new policy.
Wait, how did you?
They left a bunch of answers blank, and then they would bubble them in when I gave it back. So it'd be blank, and they would say, like, should have been E. So they'd go, E. Hey, look, I had the E. And I was like, wow, man, there's something about your pencils or something, bro, all year long. And then one of my TAs was like, you know, I was recording this, and I noticed there's a bunch of blanks in it. And I was like, photocopy that. And then I gave it back, and the kid comes back, and he goes, oh, dude, it's there. And I was like, I have a photocopy of that with all the blanks, bro. Yeah.
Wait, how could you not bust it?
At that point, it was easy. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, but it, anyway, that's why I don't allow, I'm sorry, I know it's frustrating. For anybody who has a smudgy Scantron or slightly imperfect bubbling or bubble problems, you can always take another Scantron. It doesn't take that long to transfer your answers. So like if you have a crappy one, your eraser's bad or whatever, you can start it. I don't want to like totally screw you over, but I can't appeal it. Yeah.
Well, I know.
And it does kind of force everybody to have perfectly clean Scantrons, which is kind of a good habit anyway. Just saying, because they won't let you appeal on the AP test. Yeah.
So what if like the TA catches it?
Shut
What do you do with that?
Yeah.
So your Scantron makes mistakes because of your bubbling in, not just because like you could have good bubbles. And
I have seen perfection bubbles marked wrong by the Scantron machine too. It's an imperfect method. Like, you can only do something. You know, you might get killed by a stray bullet. Like we can complain about it all we want, but unfortunately, it's not a perfect world. Newsflash. Yeah, fiber.
What was the deal with it, or adding extra credit to this?
Your extra credit adds points to this. So if you had a 15, that's a D+. But if you did 6 points of extra credit, which was available in Unit 1, a student with a D+ could walk away with a 21, which is an A+. Or an A, strong A.
So you automatically add it to it, or?
I automatically drop them into the same category as your exam points. As long as you turn in all the homework assignments, the extra credit is added automatically. But I got 2 things I have to talk about it. We're almost out of time. I told you it was a busy day. Next, your grades don't matter right now. If you check them on EDU, it's so early in the game that a little fumble on the exam has huge impacts on your grade. Look, if I start a basketball game and I make my first free throw, does that mean I'm going to have a 100% free throw average for the rest of my life? And if I get out there and I brick my first free throw, does that mean I'm going to have a 0% free throw average for the rest of my life? That first score can only be 0 or 100, right? And that's going to have a huge impact, but you know that's not going to last. It's not very predictive of the future. Kobe might miss one and Shaq might make one. It doesn't really mean anything. Likewise, right now, whatever your grade is, it's such a first sample that you got a long way to go. You could go way up or way down. So don't get lazy and don't get scared and don't get depressed and you're all fine. Just do the extra credit though. Everybody helps. Now, I got 4 minutes left. We got a test tomorrow. First of all, it's full strength. 22.5 minutes, 22.5 minutes. Second of all, you need to have all of your homework packetized in advance in the order that it was assigned. Food webbing 2.1 and 2.4, and warm-ups at the end. And now, I'm glad none of you have packed up because here's the stars. You'll need your study guide. You're wasting my time when you pack up. You think you're saving yours. In conversation, it's rude to walk out before the conversation is done. In class, it's reckless to pack up before class is done. Remember that the stars don't tell you what's on the exam. You noticed that in Unit 1, right? This is not a predictor of what's on the test. It's just a heads up about where students have bad notes sometimes. Watershed, 2 stars. Yes, I always go in the order of the study guide. The plate boundaries, 1 star. And upwelling, 1 star. The community level interactions at number 3, 2 stars. 5 and 6, 1 star each. Number 9, 2 stars. 11 and 12, 1 star each. 14, 2 stars. 15, 2 stars. 16, 3 stars. 17, 1 star. And number 21, 1 star. We didn't talk about that one in class today. I was too much of a hurry. Bye-bye, students. I see you tomorrow. Good luck studying.
Is that?